Proposition 4 sounds like a good idea, but in the real world, it's going to have really dangerous consequences for our teenagers. Now, parents rightfully want to be involved in their teenagers' lives, but laws like Prop 4 can't mandate good family communication. The fact is, most teenagers do choose to involve a parent in this very important decision, and they will not be affected by this law. The ones that will be affected are the teenagers that feel like they can't talk to their parents for whatever reason. And it's these teenagers that are going to face the consequences of perhaps being stoned, perhaps they're in abusive households and could face being abused. So they're going to have to look at very dangerous alternatives when they go to the clinic and talk with their doctor. Some of these options are delaying care. If I may correct you, moderator, you said that this would most likely reduce the number of abortions. Actually,
that's the legislative analysis.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, actually, we've seen from analysis in states that have enacted this law that it does not reduce the number of abortions. It increases the number that happen in neighboring states and increases the number of late-term abortions because a lot of teens will delay care until they turn 18. They may face other options, such as back alley abortions. They may consider suicide. They may consider crossing state lines, as I mentioned, or going to Mexico. And so basically what this law is going to do is it's going to make a very difficult decision into a dangerous one. A no vote on Proposition 4 is going to be a vote to protect our teens. So if you do care about teen safety, I would encourage you to vote no on Proposition 4.
Right. To the opening argument, any comments in opposition?
I'd love to respond to that. You know, this is going to be, you just saw a sample of what we're going to see over the course of this debate tonight. The Democrats like to talk about Proposition 4 and how it would mandate family choices, but I bet you when we get to Proposition 8, they're going to want to tell you that you should vote no against Proposition 8 so that we can allow, so that we don't redefine marriage, so that we do redefine marriage and allow gay marriage in the state, and also mandate family choices that you should, as families and parents one day, should have the right to choose, such as teaching of sex education and same-sex education to your children, whether they're in kindergarten or high school.
Right, counterpoint?
Okay, I didn't realize that our counterparts wanted to debate sex education. I'm happy to do that. I will answer one of the questions that our counterpart brought up earlier, which was the comparison between being able to take Advil and needing permission for that. This is a common comparison, but the question is, what girl is afraid to ask her parents if she can take an Advil? What teen faces a life-changing decision about whether or not to have an Advil? So that comparison basically trivializes this question, and it's this trivialization of the health of our teenagers that leads people to put out propositions like this because they don't consider the consequences.
Can I just clarify, I misspoke slightly to my colleague's comment about the legislative analysis. It says verbatim, if for either reason the measure reduces, if the measure reduces the overall number of minors obtaining abortions in California, it's also likely that fewer abortions will be performed under the Medi-Cal program and other state health care programs to provide medical services for minors. This would result in unknown state savings for these programs, so I stand corrected. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I have a question of the Young Democrats. You had stated that some children cannot talk to their parents. Can you give us an example about, why wouldn't they be able to talk to their parents about a major operation that they're about to go under, a medical procedure that they're about to enter into? And you said that they can't talk to their parents. What type of situation are you referring to?
I was fortunate to grow up in a household where I did have supportive parents, and most of my friends did, and I'm sure a lot of you do too. We would feel comfortable talking to them. I'm talking about teenagers that live in abusive households where they can't talk to their parents about things. Say, their parent would be, radically opposed to something like that. Say, the parent just would not would react very negatively to something like that, then this teenager is going to, at that point, have to make a decision. What do I do? We've seen teenagers in parental notification states where they go to their boyfriend and their boyfriend takes care of it. I don't want to go into further detail because it's rather gory, but it's basically, it's hard to anticipate all the different things that teenagers run into in the household if you were born and raised in a household where you did have open family communications. But there are a lot of households, as tragic as it is, where they can't talk to their parents and where they would face abuse or being disowned just from telling them that they were pregnant. And that's what we're concerned about. It's those teenagers that we're talking about, not most of us here in this room. It's those teenagers that we're concerned about.
It says also, just to meet both of your, maybe bridge the gap here to some extent, physician could notify an adult family, this is again the legislative analyst, notify also not the parent but an adult family member instead of notifying the minor's parent, based on the minor's written statement that one, she fears physical, sexual, or severe emotional abuse from a parent, would otherwise be notified, and two, that her fear is based on a pattern of such abuse of her by the parent, and that she could also go to court with clear and convincing evidence, legal standard, which could override the so-called judicial bypass provision, which is very common in the states that have these kinds of restrictions. So, any comments?
If I could respond to that.
About 1 minute more for each side, and then move to the second question.
On the issue of abuse, in fact, moderator just pretty much made my case for me. You have the right, if you're under the age of 18, to be emancipated. If you believe if you are under an abusive situation and your parents are abusing you, and you're under the age of 18, you have the right to go to a judge, you have the right to go to law enforcement, you have the right to be emancipated and be free from that situation. And that can be done very quickly at the local level if you have evidence that you are being abused. And I also want to raise another question to the Democrats. What happened to parental rights? Don't parents have a right to know if their child, whether you have a good relationship with your parents or not at the time, have the right to know that you're going to have a major surgical, life-changing procedure? Don't they have a right to know?
Also, one more thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the title of the proposition is that parental notification. It's not parental permission.
It's not consent, it's notification. California Supreme Court struck down consent required in 1997.
I just want to jump in real quickly here also. My name is Eric Brown, and I want to thank everyone for giving us the opportunity to come as well. But I'd like to say that as is in the case with most difficult situations and difficult questions that the body politic has to decide upon, we have competing interests here. One, we have the interests of an outlier, for example, a case scenario that has been proposed that I would argue is in fact a fallacy of logic, is a red herring that is being put forth to demonstrate that the greater good that is achieved by this law is therefore invalidated. The reality here is that you are always going to have some circumstances, unfortunately, where children are raised in an environment that is unsafe or unhealthy. There are remedies under law for that situation as it stands already. If a child is raised in an abusive home, we wouldn't want a child, nor would I think our counterparts want a child to continue to be raised in that home or that environment. So there is a procedure that a child, a minor, can go through that they can alleviate themselves of that environment and the authority of their parents and request the notification. And again, as my colleague said, it is a notification, it is not a consent. So what we need to do here is weigh these circumstances when we look at voting on a subject matter like this and decide what is the greatest good for the greatest many, while at the same time accommodating circumstances that may do harm and affect somebody negatively.
We're going to cut it there. We're going to give these people I'm going to give the Democrats 1 minute to respond. We're already over our 10-minute allocation by 5 minutes, and I'm going to suffer horrific pain and punishment by the coordinators of that.
Your sign good.
Yeah, I know. I've got it right there. 1 minute.
Okay. Bringing up the idea that a minor should get emancipated if they are in an abusive situation, I'm surprised that they would have had the wherewithal when they were under 18 to do that, and I can't imagine that a teen in an abusive situation would want to go in front of a family court judge to remove themselves from that situation and expose themselves to potentially more abuse. furthermore, this provision for the exception, where basically you can notify another family member if you report your current parents to the health and welfare services. So it's basically making a hard decision even more difficult. What do you want to do? Do you want to tell your parents, or do you want to report them to the police for being abusive? Basically, they make it sound like this is going to solve problems. What this is going to do is send a government form letter to parents. This is not going to help with family communication. This is not going to empower parents. This is going to put people in a very difficult situation, and we need to think about the consequences before we pass laws like this.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move to